My name is Jason JROCK Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. Our special guest tonight is guitarist Maxxwell Carlisle from the band Society1. How are you doing tonight, Max?
I'm great, man. How about you?
We're kicking off 2018, interviewing you, so we're getting off to a great start. So I'd like to ask, the last time I talked to you, Max, you were working on a solo cover CD. Did that project ever get released, or is that something you're continuing to work on?
Well, I hate to admit this, but that project, not only has it not been released, but it's pretty much been shelved. I did finish several of the tracks, and I released a few of them as singles. There's another one, actually, that I still will release in the future at some point as a single, but as to doing an entire album of covers, I just, other things came up.
Of course, yeah.
Something, maybe we'll talk more about it, but over the past year, past couple years, but past year especially, my entire outlook on the music industry and kind of what I want to do within it has really changed a lot, and so that album just wasn't part of the plan anymore.
Okay, well, sorry to hear that, but in any event now, does your change on, in the music industry have anything to do with you, like, joining Society1? Because I assume that takes up a lot of your time.
Well, it does take up some of my time. Not too much, though. To be totally honest, one of the things I really like about that band is that I'm not really involved in the management side of it, because I did my solo band for many years, and the big challenge of doing a project like a solo project is you're not only writing the music and doing the rehearsals and all of the musicianship, that whole side of it, but you're also doing all the management and working with booking agents and publicity people and all that stuff, and that takes up so much time. So to be in a band like Society1, where I really I learn the songs and I show up to the rehearsals and I do the best I can in that role, but I don't have to worry about anything else, and that's a real nice feeling sometimes.
And since you've joined the band, do they allow you to take part in the writing, or like you said, you pretty much just show up and record the guitar parts and play live?
Well, I do bring in song ideas sometimes.
Okay.
And there's going to be, we are planning to do a new album this year, 2018. Although we're just in the early recording stages, so I don't know for sure when it's going to come out or anything like that. But no, I do bring in song ideas. But something about that band is, the band's been around a long time, and they have a very particular sound. So if I bring in a song idea, I know that it has to be something that's going to fit their sound. I got
you. Now, let me ask you, Max, since you've joined Society1, like you said, you were a solo artist for many years. Do you enjoy being part of a band where all the focus isn't 100% on you, but you're kind of part of a team, and you get to be part of a team, like you get up on stage, there's other guys that everybody's there to see besides just you?
Oh, of course, yeah. No, I mean, when you're the front person and the band is named after you and all that, like an Angry Malmsteen kind of thing. I mean, when you're doing that, I mean, it can be rewarding in some ways. It's rewarding when it goes great, but it's also I think it can be a lot of pressure on you, also more than you would get in just a regular band. So yeah, for me to be in Society1 now as just just the guitar player, not to knock guitar players.
I hear you.
It's refreshing for me. It's great.
I mean, like when you go in and do a lot of your solo music, like you're saying, for the most part, you were the only guy in the studio. That must be quite refreshing, showing up to the studio and having other guys in the room there with you. That's got to be quite a positive change for you.
It is a nice change, and I think one of the best parts of that is when you are working by yourself and you get stuck. You get writer's block or something like that. There's no easy way out of that. But when you have other people around, right there with you, you can bounce ideas off of. You end up, I think, in a way, you can be more creative that way, and it's easier to work through sticking points and that kind of thing.
And let me ask you, as far as like, did you get a chance to perform much as a solo artist? Because I'd imagine like being a one-man band or a solo guitar player, that could be somewhat limiting.
Well, yeah, it can be for some people, but I was fortunate in that I did have a regular live band.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, on the recordings, most of the stuff that was recorded was stuff that I had recorded, although there were some bass parts. I had a bass player in the band for a while named Frank Mullis, and he came up with a lot of his own parts that were really good parts. But no, I had a regular live band
Okay.
that I would play with to perform the material. But as far as writing and stuff, that was up to me.
And I think it's kind of cool the fact that you started out as a solo artist and you've kind of moved into what you're doing now, because it allowed you, I think, too, to kind of build your own little fan base there. And one thing I've always enjoyed about your music, a lot of these guitar shredder type albums, instrumental music, a lot of times the guy's just kind of showing off. Whereas, like, what I appreciate about what you do is not every song, sounds like the same thing. Each song kind of stands out on its own, and that's very hard to do when you're recording just instrumental music.
Well, thank you. First of all, thanks a lot for that, and I agree with you. It can really be challenging. I think one of the great advantages that we have today is, you can use, a huge range of synthesizers or, pre-recorded samples, like orchestral samples and things like that. So, even if you are in that kind of one-man band situation, and that's not to say that I don't like pure guitar-driven music. I mean, there's good stuff that's just guitar too. So, but yeah, I think you're right on that.
I mean, I'm not going to mention names here, but I bought some like guitar-oriented albums back in the day where, all 10 tracks on an album sounded like, sound like the same song, and that's why I dig players like you that you really get into the making each piece of music or each song stand out on their own. And another thing I want to ask you about, Max, is as far as being an instrumental player, especially a guitar rock-oriented guitar player, is a lot of guitar players, their thing is obviously coming up with riffs. I was kind of interested in, like, when you're creating a riff, you just kind of strap on the guitar and kind of see what comes out, or decide, oh, this is a cool sounding riff, or do you tend to write riffs that you can base a song around?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. I mean, it kind of goes both ways. Sometimes I will come up with a melody first, and the melody will be like a lead part, right? And then I will write the rest of the song around that part.
Okay.
But yeah, other times, I'll be sitting there practicing, and I'll just, be jamming out some riffs. And I was like, oh, and you have one of those moments where it's like, oh man, that's cool, and then that leads to something else. But I think when you can kind of work both of those pathways together is when you kind of come up with the best stuff. I think if you only have one method of writing, then you kind of, like what you're saying before, like you end up where every song kind of sounds the same.
Kind of a good example of that is, like, you take a song like "Smoke on the Water." That's probably one of the most played riffs by guitar players, and I know a lot of people, when they first learn the guitar, that's one of the first songs they want to learn. But so I guess my question, like, what do you think takes to come up with such an iconic riff like that? I mean, 50 years later, guitar players are still, wanting to learn that riff.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think, I can speculate with you, but if I knew the answer, I would probably be a billionaire or something.
There you go.
I think really the best riffs are usually simpler ones.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely true, and I think it has to have a certain catchiness to it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be melodic, a sing-along kind of riff, but just something about it
sticks in your head, kind of.
Maybe a part that's unexpected or something like that, just something that sticks in your mind.
Yeah. And I was curious, when you were coming up, who were some of the guys that really influenced you?
Well, I'm weird in that the players that I should be influenced by, I'm really not. Like the people who are kind of when I was a kid or in my teens and stuff, it was like, it was the grunge scene. It was like Kurt Cobain and the whole 90s thing. And that stuff I really don't care for it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And so, the guys that I'm really influenced by are a lot of the 80s and 70s guitar players, even beyond guitar players, bands that had a really strong sense of melody and maybe a little slightly blues-oriented. Rolling Stones is a great example, or Boston, or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I could hear that kind of in some of your playing. I'm not surprised at all that you'd be influenced by the 80s rock guys, because, I mean, like, even take a guy like Warren DeMartini. I mean, that's the thing I used to love about those bands. They used to have guitar heroes and that, and I think that's something that's missing a lot more these days. You have a lot of these new metal bands and stuff. We don't do solos. I'm like, why not?
I don't. To be honest, I don't get it either. I mean, I love playing solos. So, like, as a guitar player, like, sometimes I look at those bands and I feel like, oh, they must be suffering, or something by not playing solos. But if it makes them happy, then that's how it is, I guess.
Yeah. Another thing, like, you take a band like another great band from the '70s, like Deep Purple's a great example, because you'll hear people always saying like keyboards suck and keyboards don't belong, but I'll give you two examples. Like you listen to anything John Lord did in Deep Purple, man, that guy he really rocked it. And Deep Purple, even though it's got a lead singer, but a lot of that stuff was based around just the drums, the keyboards, and the guitar player. And I heard like Ian Gillan, the singer, say, a lot of the Deep Purple stuff was not even based around my vocal, but what the other guys in the band were doing.
Yeah, and I think when you have a great singer like he was and is, if you have a band where you have some really, really interesting parts like that are already there, it just makes what he does, 10 times better. I mean, I think a great singer, if they're the only great member of the band, it's still hard to carry a band that way. As good as he was, it's kind of all the ingredients working together.
And Boston's another great. I always loved that band. They never really got. I mean, they sold a lot of records, but I still feel to this day they're very underrated, because but it takes them like 8 or 9 years to release a new album. That might be why. But even you look what they did with keyboards and synthesizers, and Tom Scholz. He was like the brains behind that band. And he invented a little rock man, but guitar amp. But I mean. That's another great example of just a great rock pop band. But look at what those guys did.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another band with a great vocalist again, but with really great songs and great instrumentation. And I really love. I guess the one thing about Boston, which I feel kind of like you said, it maybe it's lost sometimes. There are just a handful of songs, like maybe 3 songs.
Yeah.
That just get really overplayed, and I feel like people, if you're listening to the radio to a classic rock station, you hear a Boston song, it's going to be like 1 of 3 songs. I think a lot of people, and they think, oh, well, those are the only songs. Like those are the only good songs. If you get a little deeper into their catalog, I mean, they've got just some absolute gold songs. It's so good. See,
yeah, I mean, you made a very good point there, because a lot of people listen to those first 2 Boston albums. But they have a lot more to their catalog than just that, like you said. And I dare anybody put on any Boston album, and those are songs that'll stick in your head, like you're saying. And to me, that's what makes a great band, is not just who's in the band, but if you got songs like that stick in people's head, people are gonna remember that band.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something about today, in terms of like pop music and just any kind of contemporary music. Things, the way stuff works in the studio now, with the production techniques and so forth. I hate to say this. It's going to sound like I'm putting down modern musicians, but there's so much work and magic that you can do in the studio. You don't even have to be a really good musician anymore. But if you don't have a good song, it doesn't matter. You have to have a good song. You have to have good songwriting. and like you said, something catchy, something that's going to stick with people. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter how good you are, how good the musicians are.
Yeah, and the thing about, you take a band like Boston too, like even since their lead singer Brad Delp, has passed, has died, the band continues on. They've had Michael Sweet from Stryper and some other guys come in, but the fact that you can get these other guys to come in and do the vocal parts, and they're still selling out arenas. That just goes to show you too, just again, how great those songs are. Because if those weren't great songs, they wouldn't be still doing it. They couldn't get anybody to just come in. And that's kind of why I think. You take a band like Queen. Who doesn't want to see Queen with Freddie Mercury? But that's no longer possible. So the fact that they can go out and tour with Adam Levine, again, that shows you that you pick any one of those Queen songs, Bohemian Rhapsody, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Somebody to Love. These are songs you hear every day on the radio, and the fact that they can still go out there, that I think that's more of a testament, not to who's in the band, but to the quality of songs that that band gave us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I know you're doing the interview, but can I ask you a question?
Sure. Go ahead, Max.
Okay. Well, just what we're talking about reminded me of this. The Dio hologram.
Oh.
We're talking about bands that are still performing.
Yeah.
The lead singer has passed away.
I kind of know where you're going with this, but because I do know that Wendy Dio's got they've got the Dio Disciples, which is basically the guys that were playing with Ronnie at the time of his death, and the last few years, and they're going on tour. They got a hologram of Ronnie, and there's a little bit of controversy going around that. Honestly, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think if his wife's into doing it, okay, it's cool, they can do it, but I think it'd be a cool thing to see. But at the same time, I think it'd be a little spooky, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wonder about the same thing, and I'm looking. I see the stuff, the headlines in the news about this, and it's very polarizing, right? I mean, I guess time will tell. People go to the shows and so forth, but it seems like they're getting a lot of pushback on. It's like, it's tarnishing the legacy or something like that. And yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they simply did the same band, but with just someone else singing.
Yeah, well, I will tell you this. I did get a chance, shortly after Ronnie passed away, and they put together, the guys continue to go out there and do shows that they'd get like Oni Logan from the Lynch Mob and Tim Owens, who was in Priest and played with Thing Malmsteen, and they'd come out and do a show. Now, I will say, the band, the remaining band members and these two singers put on a dynamite show. And I will say this, of course, they're working musicians, so of course they're going to get paid. But I do believe that these guys are not doing it strictly for the money. Because I will tell you, I went to this show, and it was actually in Anaheim at the House of Blues when it was still there in Disneyland, and it was like Electric Church. I mean, the fans and everybody up on stage, it was like Electric Church. And I could honestly say that both the audience and the band that night, they were doing it out of love for Ronnie, if you know what I mean. And I'm sure you know that, because I know that you played with Simon Ryan and Scott Warren, who are part of this, and they just all miss Ronnie, and I guess that in their hearts they're thinking that they're trying to keep his legacy alive.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I definitely think, if it's coming from the right place, then certainly I have nothing to say against those guys. If they're doing it for those reasons. Yeah, but I do wonder a couple years from now, if it's still going to be going on, because it could go. I feel like it could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pushback on it from some people, but a lot of things. I mean, this is kind of pioneering stuff. This is bleeding edge. In terms of the stage performance, I mean, holograms is a very new thing.
Yeah,
So
and I do. From what I've been reading and hearing, Wendy Dio, of course, Ronnie's wife and manager, she's been hugely involved with the Dio hologram, and I guess she really researched and looked into it instead of just. But I do know, besides the Dio hologram, I remember a few years ago, after like Michael Jackson died, they had a Michael Jackson hologram on the Grammys or something. I remember that. So other people are doing it. So I think it's one of those things that if they get a big enough pushback, maybe they will stop doing it. But I give I give Wendy and the guys in the band, credit for giving it a shot. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool thing. I think it'd be cool to see, but at the same time, I be a little spooky. Like, oh wow, what's this?
Yeah, sure.
And now, being that you played with Scott and Simon, if that was to come around here, do you think you'd want to go check it out, or?
Well, yeah, I probably would check it out. I mean,
just to support your buds.
Well, yeah, support those guys, and yeah, I mean, I am curious about it, about what what it would be like. But I'm with you in that it might be great, or it might be kind of eerie. I'm not really sure. But so yeah, just if anything, just to satisfy my curiosity, I would definitely.
Yeah, and I do think if I got the invite or something to go down there, or had the opportunity to go get a ticket, I do think I would do it just to because like anything in life, I don't really think it's fair to. We might have an idea of what it might be like, but it's really hard to say until you actually go and experience it,
Absolutely.
And that's why, like, even when I'm talking to bands or, interview musicians like you, I like to listen to, like the latest CD or whatever. Before I write a CD, I don't want to just listen to one or two tracks. I want to listen to the entire thing so I can really, sink my teeth into it, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, so, like you said, you guys are in as far as Society1, you're in the early stages of recording an album, or you're going to get ready to soon. But do you think that'll come out this year, or maybe in 2019?
Well, no, I think it'll come out this year. I mean, if it comes out in 2019, then that means we're dicking around in the studio.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, basically, most of the songs are written, like, kind of hashed out at least. And so what we're doing right now is we're rehearsing the songs, so when we go into the studio, we can knock them out pretty quickly. And are these songs that are left over from, like, the last album, or have you been writing, like, when you guys were on the road and that? No, it's pretty much, it's as far as I know, it's pretty much new stuff. There might be a couple songs that, that the guys had, earlier, but from my understanding, it's pretty much new stuff. And I've contributed a couple ideas to this. At this point, I don't know if they're going to be on the final album, because we're approaching it and that we're deliberately recording more songs than we need. Oh. And then we're going to kind of end up, probably cutting out maybe two or three, something like that. Well, that's always good to have extra material as opposed to not enough. And I do dig the fact that, like, you guys are continuing to put out, new music, because, like you were saying at the top interview, the music industry being what it is, a lot of bands are just like, we're not going to even bother putting out new music. Nobody's buying CDs. We're just going to live off the catalog we have. So I must thank you guys, because I think that's a really cool thing for the bands that continue to put out new music for their fans. Oh, well, I mean, you're welcome. But yeah, I think for me, again, like I said earlier, like, just kind of how I think about the music industry has changed in a lot of ways. And one of the ways it's changed is that I don't really think about an album so much as its own product anymore. Yeah. But I think of it as like you would give out a business card or something like that. Yeah, very sad. So, I mean, if people do the thing where, hey, come to the show and you get a free CD or something, like, I'm all for that stuff. So, I mean, in a way, it's been hard for me, and certainly for a lot of other people, to let go of that. But, as long as you can still get the music out there to people, and you can use it in other ways, it's productive in other ways still. So, Yeah, I mean, you just have to know how to market the stuff, because, I mean, I'll give you a good example. A number of years ago, I went to see the band Tesla, huge Tesla fan for several years. They put out, like, a double cover CD. They cover some great material, but what they did was they said, okay, you know what, we're gonna have two. It's gonna be a double disc, but we're gonna sell, like, disc one. You can go and buy at the local Best Buy, but if you want to get the second disc, you have to come. You have to come see the band live. That's only going to be available at the show. So, like, me, myself, and a couple of my friends, we went just to get the second CD, because they weren't selling it anywhere online. You couldn't get it on the bands. You had to go see the band live, and so. And again, you just show up with the ticket. You didn't even need to buy the CD. They gave it away for free. But so that's kind of a cool thing, like I thought, to do for the fans, So I went and checked out. I got to see a great live show. Got a great CD I wouldn't got otherwise, Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a great. In fact, I might steal that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Now, you've been with Society1 for about a year and a half or so now. How accepting do you think that those fans have been of you joining the band?
Well, there's a couple funny things about that. I mean, I'll say in general, I think it's gone really well.
Yeah,
I haven't heard any
negative.
I haven't heard any negative response to it, but I think when I'm in my stage gear and with the guitar and all that stuff from a distance, I think people confuse me with the previous guitar player. So I've actually had people come up to me
and they'll
be talking about, hey man, when I saw you play at such and such show like 3 years ago, and it's like obviously the other guitar player.
Yeah.
You know, and they think it's the same guy. And most of the time I just go along with it, you know, which is kind of funny too. But
now let me ask you: Did you know any how did you get the gig? Did you know anybody in the band, or did you hear they were auditioning? Just go down and audition?
Oh yeah, well no, I knew Matt Zane, you know, the front guy and the main guy. I've known him for years beforehand.
Wow.
So I knew him for a long time. I kind of knew DV, the bass player, just more of like an acquaintance. Didn't really know Jordan, the drummer. Didn't know him at all. But I've known Matt for years. In fact, he directed a couple music videos for me when I was doing my solo band. So he and I had worked together. We'd never played music together, but we'd work on other projects together. So yeah, but he had some the previous guitar player and the band, they had parted ways, and it was kind of a unexpected parting, I think. And so he had put the word out he was looking for somebody. And at the time, I was not doing a lot of live playing, so it was something that I was kind of interested in. And yeah, it just kind of went from there. But I did an audition and all that stuff.
So how familiar were you before you went down to audition with the band's material? Like, did you have to really study it, or did you know some of it already?
Well, that was another kind of weird situation, because I was familiar with some of it, but the stuff I was familiar with was their much earlier material.
Oh, okay.
And so when I started talking with Matt and the other guys, they said, "Yeah, we're really trying to get away from the old material, and so we've got all these new songs that we're working on." So a lot of the stuff that I learned at the beginning was really fresh, like from the most recent album, that kind of thing.
And then what was your very first show with the band like? I mean, that had to have been a special show, being that's the first time you guys are playing together. But what was the nerve factor like? Were you were really ready, or were you feel like you were really ready to go?
It was a bit rushed, I think I had about a little less than 3 weeks.
Wow.
To get ready for it. From the time that I joined the band, to playing the first show was a little less than 3 weeks, I think. But no, I really felt pretty good going in. I mean, I did a lot of as much preparation as I could.
Well, that's good to
and and the show went great. It was a fun show.
Now, let me ask you, since you've been with the band, have you guys had the opportunity at all to tour outside the U.S., or is that something that you hope to do with this new album you're going to be putting out?
We haven't done any touring outside of the U.S. The band has done that quite a bit beforehand, but just not recently. So all this, everything we've been doing has been in the U.S. And I definitely think getting back to Europe in particular, that's where I think their largest following is outside of the U.S. So I think getting back to Europe is definitely one of the goals of the band.
Yeah, if
we can manage it with this next album, that'd be fantastic.
It's amazing, because I know a lot of the European rock fans, they really love their hard rock and metal. I mean, you go to any of those European countries, and I hear of it, they just they really appreciate any band that just comes over there, and they got nothing but love for the hard rock and metal bands.
Yeah. I mean, that support is there. I mean, that's a wonderful feeling to know that it's there. That Europe, and then a lot of bands are really popular over in Japan too. I mean, I think you and I might have even talked about this before, but Mr. Big.
Oh yeah,
That's an example of a band of they play in to 200 people.
Yeah.
They'll play and like sell out Budokan in Japan. You know, it's a crazy difference.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times they only like they'll go over to Japan, maybe do like 7-10 shows, and they're good for the rest of a year. You know, they've made their bank, if you will.
Yeah.
Which is kind of just it's hilarious. And you know, they put out another great new CD recently. Great songs, and I think the band just they're really on top of their game. But like you said, it's very sad that a lot of people aren't buying new music, and a lot of people are missing out on a great album. But again, that's a great example of a band. Okay, well we'll put out CD not because we have to, but we can just go over to Japan and do those 7 or 10 shows, you know, this year, and we'll recoup whatever we lost on the album.
Right.
Yeah. And now, you mentioned before hooking up with Society1 that you hadn't performed live in a number of years. So how exciting was it for you to get back out there and start performing live again?
Well, it was great. I mean, that was a big part of why I wanted to join the band, because that was something that I really missed. And it wasn't so much that because I had performed the year before with Hellion, but it was just not very often, you know. And doing those shows where it's just one show every once in a while, even though the shows themselves were great and they were really cool. But you go, you know, with months in between, and then you have to go through the whole rehearsal process again and get everything working again in the band, and it's just, I mean, it's when you're playing on a regular basis, it becomes a lot more of a natural feeling, and I think it's more enjoyable for me and the other musicians. Yeah,
because I gotta say, you know, Hellion was that was a great band that you were in, because you know, the interesting thing is, I'm sure you know, the band hadn't until they got back the lineup with you and, you know, Scott and Simon. That band hadn't played in a number of years, and when you guys got together, it was an all new lineup, and I think a lot of people, you know, they started listening to Hellion music, and they were digging you guys as a band, and even though you weren't original members, you know, people were digging that band, and I guess my next question is that still like an active band, or is everybody just busy doing other things, and maybe it'll pick up one day, or you just don't know at this point?
Well, I can say that it's on a sort of unplanned hiatus.
Okay.
So there's nothing, you know, we didn't get together and be like, okay, we're going to take a year off. You know, there was nothing like that. And there are some cool things that are still kind of being worked on, but the big challenge is the schedules, you know, because everybody in the band, I guess with the exception of Ann, plays in other bands, and a lot, you know, Simon and Bjorn and Scott, I mean, those guys have been touring a lot lately. I mean, Simon was doing all kinds of stuff. He was doing Dear Disciples and Operation Mindcraft with Jeff Tate. So, just getting everybody's schedules to jive is really a challenge for that band. So that's really the only issue right now. But
well, I'm glad it's not
released. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm glad it's not. You guys are maybe just on hiatus, because I was saying when Ann got the band together with you guys, it seemed like it had a lot of momentum, and it just be a very sad thing for the band to just kind of fade away.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen at all. It's just just things that move much more slowly than what would be ideal, just because of, you know, the
scheduling,
the scheduling and that kind of stuff. But we just released Karma's a Bitch, the album that I played on. We just released it on vinyl.
Oh wow!
And it's been a really, really cool thing for me, because that's, you know, as like somebody, I came up in the '90s, right? So it's like it's the only thing, I'll say first thing of many here that I've ever done that's been released on vinyl. So
well, I'm a little older than you, but I will say this, that you know, as great as technology is, I'm with you, because a lot of these kids today, they don't even know what a record, let alone a record store is. And, you know, I miss the days of going to Tower Records and seeing all the latest releases. I'm an old school guy. I love to have something in my hand, you know, look and see who played on the album, maybe who wrote the songs and who produced it and all that. And I love the artwork. I mean, a great example of that, I remember years ago, like being in a Tower Records, just like know nothing about who Iron Maiden was at the time. but I picked up a number of beats. I said, this is a cool. I got to get this, and you know what? I got it and fell in love with it. So, that's what a lot of these music fans are missing these days. I mean, I still like to have something to hold in my hand. As great as it is that you can go and download it. Oh, you don't have to buy the whole album. I'll just buy the single for 99 cents. I think that's a lot of what's wrong with the music industry. People want everything just right away, instantly, instead of there's not that desire to go and get it like there used to be when we were growing up.
Yeah, I think that excitement for when new music is coming out is pretty much gone these days.
Yeah, and I think it's cool, like you said, that you can release some of the stuff on vinyl now, because it's amazing. Vinyl's making a comeback. I was just interviewing Christy Mages, a guitar player from Pretty Boy Floyd. They put out a great new album, and he's telling me, he says, besides CD, people can get this on vinyl. That's a special thing we want to do with this new CD. We wanted to put it out on vinyl, and kind of he was telling me too that we've tried to kind of be like a modern rock band and kind of do different things, but he says with this new CD, what I wanted to do, we wanted to be who we were, and he said, there's such a demand for this CD because we didn't try to change our sound. We're just going to do what we do, and people are loving it. And I think a lot of times bands try to change their sound, or we want to go for a different sound. That's a lot of why fans turn away. But I think if you stay true to who you are, your fans will stay true to you.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I heard their Pretty Boy Floyd. I heard that new album, and it really is great. But it's absolutely back to their roots and kind of what they were originally known for. And from what I can tell, everybody's loving it. So,
and he was telling me the funny thing is, he says there was much more of a demand for this CD than even the label expected. He says people were ordering this, and he says they were running out of stock. They had to reprint some CDs. So I said, well, that's always a good sign. Now I was also Max, reading on your bio on your website that before you started playing guitar, but I guess you actually learned how to play the violin. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Violin was the first instrument that I played, and this was, I was like just a little kid when I was doing that, and I played violin, and then I actually played bass after that, like upright bass.
Okay.
And then I played also little piano, and I started playing guitar around then, like in my early teens. But I was playing violin back when I was like 8, 9 years old, that kind of thing.
Start out with the violin, because again, it's a stringed instrument. Do you think that helped you progress, like when you moved up to the guitar and the bass? The fact that you done that first.
I think it did in terms of how I thought about the instrument. There's not much similarity in terms of technique. There's almost none, really. I mean, the stringed instruments, but the scaling is a violin is such a tiny instrument, and there's no frets and that kind of stuff. So it's very different. Violin is a very challenging instrument, though. I mean, if you sit down on a piano, you can hit a key and it sounds nice, even if you don't know what you're doing. But on the violin, just to get a pleasant tone out of the instrument, it takes like a couple years just to make it sound decent, So it's really tough. But as far as the helping me, the way you think about music and melody and a sense of rhythm, that definitely helps me, learning that first on the violin, especially at a young age.
And I'd imagine it makes you, being that it's such a structured instrument, it makes you really discipline yourself and have to practice and everything. But now, as far as taking the violin, is that something your parents kind of pushed you towards, or did you just take it up when you were in school?
Well, it was a little of both. I mean, they kind of encouraged me from a distance. I think they wanted me to. First of all, my dad played guitar.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I was around music a lot anyway as a young kid.
Okay, wow.
And I think they just thought, it'd be good for him to, learn an instrument, but they didn't really push me towards any particular instrument. I mean, violin was just, in school, it's something that's easily available.
Yeah. So being that your dad was a musician, I mean, how did he feel when you started taking up the guitar, and when you started doing what you did, and I guess ultimately recording your first CD in that? I mean, he must have been awfully proud.
Oh, mean, he loves it, and he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But
sorry to hear that.
when I was like in my teens and getting into my first bands and all that stuff, I mean, I think he thought that was really cool. And then later on when I'm down in Los Angeles and playing at the Whiskey A Go Go and that kind of stuff, and to him that was just like. He's like, wow, it's, some huge bands have played there and all this stuff, and because he used to live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And then, obviously where I grew up was up in the Seattle area. So, but he still had memories of, Los Angeles and that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, when I came down here and was doing music down here, I think he really thought that was cool. Yeah, but he played guitar, and I have an uncle named Joe, and my dad and my uncle lived together for a while and were songwriters and all that stuff. So yeah, it's definitely they weren't metal guys, definitely. But, definitely music is in the family.
I mean, it must have been like, he must have felt kind of like you were living the dream, but that you were able to advance your career to what he wasn't able to. I mean, even like you say, playing a legendary place like the Whiskey. I'm sure when you were on that stage, you must have been thinking, of, boy, Van Halen played this stage, The Doors. I mean that's got to be an amazing feeling when you're up on that stage, thinking of who played there before you.
Well, I mean, maybe somebody else would give you a different answer, but if I'm being totally honest,
sure.
When you're in it. In the moment, I've never felt like that.
Oh, okay.
Because I think when you're looking at it from the outside, you see the performance, right? You're up on stage, the lights are going, the PA's working, your band's playing, everything's working. But of course, you don't see the rehearsals and the just behind the scenes drama and so forth.
Yeah.
And all that stuff that has to happen in order for you to get up there. And so, yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but I mean, there have been shows that I played at the legendary Whiskey A Go Go, and I was up there just having a miserable time,
Wow.
And I hate to say that, but I want to be, I want to be straight with you about it and everything.
There you go. Okay.
I mean, if I can at least appear that, I mean, if the audience is looking at me and they think I'm having a good time, they're going to have a good time. So if that appearance comes across, then I'm doing something right. But
I think it does.
It's not always like that in my mind.
I think it does because, I mean, anytime I've checked out any of your videos or anything, or even stuff you have up on YouTube, it seems like that you're really into the performance. But so I think that has a lot to do with your ability as a musician. But that's kind of amazing to hear because like when I watch anything that you have up there. You come across as a real pro, like you're really into your thing.
Well, thank you. I'm glad it comes across well, and my struggles aren't coming through, because that would be bad.
Yeah, because to a lot of people, you are living the dream, but like you said, when you're up on that stage, it's kind of your profession, your job, and so your experience is somewhat different than the people watching it, And that makes a lot of sense.
I'm sure that's true for
anybody.
I'm sure that's true for a lot of things. I'm sure people think about, being a movie star or something like that. But, when you're doing it, it's probably totally different.
Yeah, and you're kind of, in the moment. Now, I also know that you're an avid bodybuilder. I was curious, were you into bodybuilding first? Did you get into bodybuilding around the same time you get into music? Or, how did you get into that? Because I know you're known around the bodybuilding circles just as much as you are in musical circles.
Well, I've been into both for definitely a very long time, but I have to say, I've been into music longer, but that's probably just because I started at such a young age.
Yeah.
But no, I started in my teens, in high school, getting into fitness and bodybuilding, and really kept at it, and it's something I really enjoy. At this point in my life, if it's something that has become so familiar to me that it's just, to not be doing it would be like, not drinking water or something like that.
Yeah, it's become, like you said, just an extension of who you are, which is a great thing because it helps keep you healthy, and being fit like that, I'd imagine, when you're doing all these shows, that's got to come in handy, being that built and everything in such good shape.
Yeah, well, I think that there are a lot of similarities, actually, in how you develop in terms of bodybuilding and how you develop as a musician, practicing,
discipline,
you're practicing
discipline,
and doing
yeah,
guitar exercises and that kind of thing, and on the other hand, you're working out in the gym. It's very similar to how you practice on guitar and that kind of thing. And I've actually gotten to talk with some other musicians. Chris Broderick is a good example. He's really into fitness as well.
Oh, okay.
And so I got to talk to him a few times about, how he stays in shape when he's out on these long tours and that kind of stuff, and he kind of gave me some tips and things which I've used. So it's always cool to have I think it's something in music with musicians. Sometimes you get this laser focus where you're only paying attention to what's going on in music and in music in particular. And I think it actually helps you out in a lot of ways to have other things in your life that you can enjoy and be focused on. I think it actually, in a way, it makes you a better musician or at least more inspired if you have other things in your life.
Yeah, and I was reading, you're also into photography now. As far as being into photography, is this like you shooting pictures for other people, or talk a little bit about how you got into that? Because again, it's another great avenue to have something to keep you busy, when in your downtime.
Sure. Well, I really do enjoy photography, and it's a lot of the time it is other people, like portrait work, basically.
Okay.
Sometimes I shoot musicians. Sometimes it's fitness people. Sometimes it's just somebody who wants a nice photo.
Yeah.
And it's I just kind of got into it. It was really kind of an extension of music.
Yeah.
When I started doing more YouTube videos, and I wanted just the ability to, it's like, you're in a band and somebody else's band, they need a nice photo, and it's like if you can be there and have the knowledge and the skill to do that, it makes everything easier. So it was just kind of like, well, it's just a convenience for me to learn how to do this. And then I found out that I just really enjoyed it, so I've been expanding that and doing more of it.
Well, that's cool because, the thing with photography to me is like, I'd imagine, even as a musician yourself, that you've had to do a lot of photo shoots, and you must get tired out like having a photographer snap all these photos of you, and you're the subject, so to speak. Where now you're the photographer and you're not the subject. You're taking photos of other things and other people. That must be a little fun for you to not be the center of attention, so to speak.
Yeah, it's definitely a different role.
Yeah.
But I think being on the other side of it beforehand, being the person who's, the photographer taking the picture of, and then switching to the other role has been, it's been good for me. I think it helps me when I'm taking the photos, working with the model or whoever.
Yeah, and I know I was also reading that you're really into animals and rescuing animals. I know I was reading something that you and your wife raised some guinea pigs. I was curious. I'm a huge animal lover myself, but how did you get really into having that love for animals?
Well, I grew up with animals. I mean, just like I always had cats, and my family growing up we lived in sort of the suburbs, but a very woodsy kind of suburbs, and so we had like chickens and ducks and this kind of thing, just around the yard. So I've always been around animals, but the stuff I'm doing now, basically what happened is my wife really wanted a dog. She was like, I really want to get a dog, but it wasn't realistic for us to have a dog. We lived in the city, and it wasn't really going to work out. So I was trying to think of some other pet that we could have that would be,
more feasible,
more manageable. And I don't know. This is what happened. So I was doing an errand, and I was at a pet store buying cat food, and I saw a guinea pig in the pet store, and I thought, okay, that's a pet I hadn't thought of. Mm-hmm. So I went home, and I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, hey, how about if we get a pet guinea pig? And she had never, I don't think she'd ever
thought about
seen in real life a guinea pig before, So, but she's like, yeah, let's do it, And so this got me out of having to get a dog. So I was like, all right, great. So I went back to the pet store, and I got the guinea pig, and I knew nothing about guinea pigs, right? I just I bought the stuff that they told me to buy, and I brought it home, and she was just thrilled, and instantly fell in love. And then she started doing a bunch of research about guinea pigs and how you're supposed to keep them. And one of the big things is they're not supposed to be alone. They're very social animals. So you're always supposed to have them in pairs or threes or something. And so with a little more research, we discovered, and this sounds ridiculous, but it's absolutely true, there is a animal rescue in Los Angeles that specializes in guiney pigs. And they have like 100 guiney pigs living there. So we went out to this place, and we got a buddy, for the guinea pig we already had. And when we were out there at the rescue, we met everybody there, and everybody was really nice. That was just a really nice vibe. So we started going back there more often, and ended up becoming regular volunteers there.
Wow.
Yeah, they have like a yearly or an annual festival, and we go out there, and I've emceed the festival a couple times.
Wow.
It's this whole crazy thing. It's just, but yeah, no, it's the rescue does really good work. It's they have guinea pigs there, but they also have some horses. They also have some rescued horses.
Okay.
And a few other animals that just can't really go anywhere else. So it's out in Chatsworth.
Okay, wow, that's a great.
It's a really good Los Angeles guinea pig rescue. It's a really good organization.
Well, that's a great thing you guys are doing. And what I love the most about that story is your wife starts out wanting a dog, and you go to this pet store and you think, maybe she would like this, and not even knowing anything about a guinea pig, or she never seen one before. She fell right in love with it from basically what you're telling me, and I think that's cool because it just goes to show you that you really you knew in your heart what that your wife would love. That's got to be a great feeling,
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's become a big part of her life actually. She one of the things she does now is she actually started a soap company.
Wow.
Making these little tiny soaps that are shaped like guinea pigs.
Wow.
And so she'll go around and she'll sell them on Etsy and that kind of stuff to people, because there's a whole big. I know for all the metalheads listening, this is probably totally bizarre, but there's a whole guinea pig subculture, and people who are just really into this. Yeah. So it's turned into a really big thing for her.
Well, people might laugh at that. People might laugh at that, but I remember a number of years ago, PJ Farley, the bass player from Trickster, he was selling some kind of soap or something to his fans. So you just never know. But that's really cool that you guys got into that. That's just part of who you are and your story. I really dig that. Now, before we wrap this up, Max, I want to ask you a few more questions. Now, you were mentioning, of course, you're very busy these days with Society1, and so you kind of your solo thing is kind of on the side. But do you think you're done putting out solo releases, or just for now?
Well, that's a good question. It's something I ask myself pretty often. I'm going to continue to put out solo releases in terms of singles.
Okay.
And I'm interested definitely in doing something where I would be collaborating with somebody else, like another rock guitar player or something, like an instrumental guitar.
Oh, that's cool.
But as far as putting out like a full album,
yeah.
Like putting out a full album and then putting the band together and touring.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm never going to do it again, but it's not something that is in the immediate future, definitely.
Yeah, I hear you, because even that's what a lot of these musicians are doing. Like Stephen Pearcy, the singer from Rat, he put out his last solo album, but what he did is he'd go in and record a couple tunes at a time. He'd release them as singles, like you're saying, and when he had 13 tracks, then he put out the full CD. But he was releasing them one at a time and kind of letting each track kind of live on its own, and the fans really dug it. So I think that is kind of a modern way to do it now. another cool thing. I know you typically put out like a Christmas song once a year, which you did this year. Have you ever? Because I was just curious. Have you ever thought about now that you got enough of these tunes, like putting out a Christmas CD, like of all your Christmas songs? Because you might laugh, but I mean, I remember a few years ago, Twisted Sister put out a Christmas album. They hadn't done nothing in years, and that album just took off. Just amazing. And now they're known for their Christmas album, which is amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah, I mean, no, I would definitely consider doing that. It would probably be like that. Like, it'll probably take me 10 years, right?
Yeah, to get all enough songs.
I'm going to do one a year.
Yeah.
But, I would, pretty much just, like you're describing. I mean, I'll probably continue to do that.
Yeah.
It's ended up just kind of being a fun thing.
Yeah.
And, if I get enough of them, sure, I put it out.
Well, Max, as always, I really enjoyed talk to you all night, but it's getting late. But when the new Society1 album does drop, let me know, and I'd love to help you promote that and anything you got coming down the line. So just please keep in touch, and once this interview gets posted, I'll be sure to let you know. And then at that point, of course, you can post on all your sites if you like. But thanks so much for agreeing to talk to me. It's been great talking to you.
Absolutely, man. No problem.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
All right.